Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be painting some daffodils for you. So today we're going to start with some lemon yellow. You can see I'm popping this on one of my pre-drawn outlines and I'm just deepening the colour here with a bit of cadmium yellow. Those are going to be our two key yellows for today. So you want to go around and do all the petals first, I think, with a layer of lemon yellow, a gentle wash, something that's quite light in colour but has a lot of water in it, so you can diffuse a little bit of cadmium yellow into it just to deepen that hue. And you can see here that I'm also adding some Payne's grey. This is just to create a little bit of shadow, a little bit of depth to those inner petals, just where they would be folded slightly as they join with the rest of the flower. This is just going to add a little bit of three-dimensional effect. This is not to really darken down those petals. You only want a very tiny amount of Payne's grey here. So as you can see here, I'm keeping my paper quite wet. I've got quite a lot of water on my brush, which as you can see is a flat brush, I think a size 0 flat brush. And this is in order to give me a decent amount of coverage, and also it means that I can blend in my colours quite easily with the flat tip. I can do fine lines or little flat strokes as and when. I love flat brushes. I think they're really good for botanical illustrations when you don't need to do a huge amount of really fine detail. They just give you a lot of control, I think, and they give you a really nice effect. So you can see I'm just going back in here and adding a little bit of shadow just to the core of each petal. That's where it joins the flower. Trying not to be too heavy-handed with the colour. Obviously in some places you want it to look really rich and deep and vibrant, but not here, not with the Payne's grey. I want my yellows to jump out. I don't want my greys to jump out too much, because this is a lovely spring painting after all. So we're just going to diffuse that Payne's grey in and just let it sit there. Here I am using, I think, a very strong amount of cadmium yellow, so it looks really vibrant. And this is just where on my outline from the flower that I drew, some of the petals were slightly folded over at the edges, slightly crinkled up, so that's showing the underside of the petals, which is generally you find a darker colour than the inside petal, which is why I've used quite a strong colour there, just to show a little bit of three-dimensionality and a little bit of depth. And just for this inner trumpet here, I'm using a light wash to begin with. This is a light cadmium yellow wash, just to make it stand out slightly, and just to start bringing a bit more vibrance in, just to where it would naturally be in shadow because of the trumpet that the daffodils have. I'm just going to be going over that little semicircle there, just to give a bit of three-dimensionality with a couple of darker colours. I think I've used a hint of yellow ochre, which is a wonderful companion actually for cadmium yellow, because they have a similar hue, but the yellow ochre is just that darker, richer, sort of more earthy colour, but it also works really well as a shadow colour for cadmium yellow, which is really nice to remember. I've also used a little bit of Payne's grey there, you can see, just to add an extra layer of shadow. I'm just going to let that sit there and diffuse whilst I start on the other daffodil. So you can see here with the second flower, it's just a repeat of exactly the same process. Layering up with the lemon yellow wash first, then a bit of cadmium yellow, and then adding some shadows with the Payne's grey. It's a simple process. It's very beginner friendly, especially if you've already got the outline drawn, which I am planning to make all of my outlines available for download soon. just so that if anyone wants to replicate this, they don't have to worry about sitting there sketching out in pencil for hours only to ruin it with paint and get really upset, which is what I've done before many times. Yeah, so watch this space, I guess, for outlines, free downloads if you want them. Still trying to figure that out, but I'll let you know when it's ready. And again, you can see here, I'm adding the final little details to these lovely petals with a lovely strong cadmium yellow, just to give definition and three-dimensionality. Going back in and doing the little underside, the little folds of that petal on the left there. Just sort of going back over, adding a bit more water, a bit more paint, just as and when. Which is, you know, the wonderful thing about watercolour, means you can always do this. You know, if you're painting and it doesn't quite look right once you've done it, it's not it, you know, it's not set in stone, you can look at it and think, I think that needs a bit more yellow there. So you can see I am messing about with this petal quite a bit, sort of layering up cadmium yellow and Payne's grey, trying to get the shadow that I wanted. As you can tell, I've sped this footage up a wee bit, just so that you don't have to sit here for the, I think about 20 to 25 minutes that it actually took me to do this. So if you're worried about time, then obviously this is not like a really time sensitive thing. This is a quick paint, relatively quick. It's not going to take you days, it's not going to take you hours. It took me 20 to 25 minutes. So obviously I've sped it up so that you guys don't have to sit here and watch me laboriously doing everything in real time, because I must admit I am a slow painter, or at least at the moment. But yeah, hopefully it's still slow enough so that you can see what I'm doing, see my hands, see my little brush movements, see where I'm putting the paint. As you can see, I'm just doing the shadow here on this second trumpet. Again, with the first going in with the yellow ochre, and then with the Payne's grey, and then just lightening up that other side just to, you know, show the light hitting the left side of the flower there. So just trying to pull that colour out and make it bright. So now I'm going to leave the flowers to dry because they're done, and I'm starting on the stalks. This is the viridian hue I'm using here, the green, which I'm going to mix up with a little bit of sap green. You can see here I'm just sort of lightening it up, and yellow ochre. Because I don't know about you, but I do struggle with green sometimes. The pure green pigments often seem too rich or too yellow or too bluey for, you know, true sort of nature tones. I don't know if that's just me, maybe I'm just fussy. But yeah, so here you can see I am layering colours into the stalk, and honestly you don't need to do this. If you find a green that you love, please tell me in the comments below, that would be great. But yeah, I think obviously you can see my brush is quite wet. I am keeping the paint that I'm doing quite wet so that I can blend the colours in. I think the viridian hue is a beautiful green on its own, but it's quite a blue toned green, which means that for these kinds of English plants which have a more of a yellow toned stalk, I have to sort of pop in my own yellow tones, which is great. You know, I love blending, love watercolour, that's sort of what it's all about. You can see here that I'm putting a darker hue on one side just to give a bit of dimensionality to these leaves here, especially where you can see a couple of them are folded over, because that's what leaves do. Again, here you can see that I'm using quite a lot of water. I'm using wet and wet sort of blending technique, popping in water and popping in fresh paint as necessary to really try and get those different green tones here. And you can see here that my yellow is now almost completely dry. There's no diffusion of the green into the yellow, thank goodness. This just shows just how quick watercolour dries, especially on a warm day. So as you can see here, I'm just doing the last of the greens, just doing this last leaf very carefully, just to make sure that I don't lose that darker diagonal line there, which differentiates the little part that's been folded over. And now moving on to this bit. You know, I don't actually know what that part of the flower is called. If anybody does know, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I'm layering up my greens and my yellows there just to give it a sort of a mid-tone. I think you can see I had a slight spillage there, which I'm just mopping up with the brush using clear water. And there we are, the finished piece. Thank you for following along with me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you feel inspired now to go and paint some of your own beautiful flowers. I'd love to know how everyone gets on in the comments. And yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Have a lovely rest of the day, guys, and thanks a lot. Bye.